These bad boys are 3 of Avatar's most iconic creatures. They are incredibly detailed. And it made me wonder, if I was a Minecraft mob developer, could I design these creatures just as detailed as they are in the movies? Could I animate them to be just as phenomenal? Well, I guess you'll just have to find out in a software called Blockbench. If you don't know what Blockbench is, it's the most intuitive 3D software for low poly modeling. It's pretty great. Naturally, the first creature that I decided to turn into a mob is the skimwing. Apparently, it's a combination of a flying fish and a crocodilian called Gariel. Hi, I'm Gabe. It's nice to eat you. Meet you. Oh no, I did it again. Now I'll never make friends. Anyway, I usually start off with a Minecraft mob that matches my project, and in this case, the best suitor is the dolphin. Let's load that sucker up and let the fun begin. So, for my first attempt, I started modeling the jaws of the skimwing. I said to myself, this is super easy. I'm literally slaying. But of course, that was only in my mind. I just wasn't vibing with how simple the skimwing looked. It wasn't giving the sea creature the justice it deserved. I had a concept sketch. It's not the best drawing, but I had to completely throw it out the window and hit the restart button for this project. Once I moved past the simplification phase, I needed to start adding more layers to really sell the skimwing's shape and anatomy. That meant breaking the model into more pieces, but I also had to think ahead about how each of those pieces would actually function once I start animating them later in the video. What this really taught me is that even when something looks simple, especially in pixel block games like Minecraft, there's a lot going on behind the scenes to make sure it functions properly. And as we keep going, you'll see exactly why I chose to add so many segments. Another part of the model that required my total finesse and attention to detail was the wing-like fins. They're the skimwing's most dominant feature in the films, so I had to be really intentional about getting their shape right. For now, I'm just adding planes to establish the base of the fins. In order to make everything come together though, I actually needed to erase parts of the mesh to refine the fin silhouette, but I ran into an issue. I could only erase the top half of the fin because each side was using a different UV layout, for reasons I did not know. I spent literal hours trying to figure this out. Was the eraser not working? Was it the opacity? Or was it that the UVs weren't unwrapping properly? I just didn't know at the time. Until I realized that you had to put the UVs together so they're sharing the same face. I don't know why they weren't sharing the same face from start though. Or maybe it's because my stupid ass used a cube as a plane instead of using an actual plane. There were some stuff that I needed to finish up on my model though, like the dorsal fin and the tail fin, and after that was it. With the modeling process finally finished, I moved on to texturing. I grabbed my graphic tablet, turned up some music, and started painting. I didn't think I needed to explain the texturing process because it's visual. You'll see. Just sitting back and texturing like this is super therapeutic. Even though a lot does go into color choices and placement. It also takes me like 4 or 5 hours sometimes to finish texturing, sometimes longer. It's pretty much like painting to me. I always feel like I'm creating this great mosaic piece. A lot of my time actually went into the wing-like fins of the skimwing. I ensured that it was detailed, probably too detailed, and that the color palette matched the one from the movie. And with that, the texturing process came to an end and it was time to move on to the mob animations. The first animation that I did was unique to the skimwing. It's sort of where it's hovering above the water, and I thought that it would be pretty cool if a mob actually did that. Considering that this is a fish-crocodilian hybrid, it's also natural that I give it a swimming animation. This is a hostile creature as well, so I made sure that it has a means of attacking, which means that an encounter with the skimwing is likely fatal. The final result was like a breath of fresh air. The silhouette felt clean, the wings read well, and once the animation was in, it finally felt alive. As proud as I was of the results, I knew I hadn't tackled the hardest one yet, the Tulkun. For starters, I couldn't think of a base mob that would match a creature that's 10 times the size of a whale with all its complexities. So I started one block at a time. I found myself using a lot of blocks to get the general shape of this creature because, as I said, I wanted to be as close to the movie while still being able to fit in a Minecraft world. One thing I learned while modeling this is that blocky art is about balance. If you lean too far in the Minecraft style, you will lose what makes the Tulkun recognizable. If you chase accuracy too much, it stops feeling like it belongs in the game. So the goal is to respect the best of both worlds. I think the final model did a pretty good job at that. When it came to texturing, the most important step was locking in the base color first, that grayish blue tone that defines the Tulkun. Once that was solid, I started texturing the horn-like things on the top of its head and gave it these subtle markings that it's known for. Those small details are what makes the Tulkun the Tulkun. I wanted the animation to be simple, just a slow, graceful swimming motion. The Tulkun isn't aggressive unless provoked, so the movement had to feel calm and weightless. If you've used Blockbench before, you know you need to add locators to your groups to create inverse kinematics chains. I did it before with the skimwing, so I thought it would be easy. But nothing was moving the way I wanted, the body bent weirdly, and after a small tantrum, I finally realized the issue: the pivot points. A pivot basically tells your model where to move based on where that pivot is. If your pivots aren't placed correctly, your inverse kinematics just won't behave the way you expect. Once I adjusted them, everything started flowing the way it should. The final results pretty much prove that. The animation turned out great, and the texturing was also pretty good. The texturing process for the Turuk was on a whole different level. But first thing first, I started off with an Ender Dragon as my base model. I reshaped it bit by bit, stretching proportions, refining the wings, adjusting the shapes, until eventually the Ender Dragon disappeared and the Turuk took its place. The Turuk has a really unique wing shape, and I wanted to capture that properly. So I used the same erasing techniques from earlier to carve out the perfect details, as accurate as I could, which left me with the beautiful patterns that I needed. Texturing was where things got serious because I greatly underestimated how long this would take. With all the colors, with all the patterns, let's just say it took a long time to finish. Especially the wings, the rest of the body wasn't so bad. Once I finished modeling the main parts though, I went on to the head to add some well-needed details, which included the eyes and some extra shadings. Then I textured its legs and those cute little toes. After that, I decided that it was time to move on to animating. I decided to give this mob a flying animation, which I think is pretty cool. When you're doing flight animation like these, a good rule of thumb is that birds and dragons don't flap evenly. The downstroke should feel powerful and the upstroke should feel very light. It felt so good looking at the final results because going through this project, I learned so much. As with every project I do, I am always amazed, and I hope you were amazed too. Don't forget to like and subscribe because it helps a lot. I've been Lavawig and you've been great.